Hi friends! Thanks so much for clicking on this video. This is a Welcome to Monster High photo booth ghouls doll, and I'm going to be customizing her today with a steampunk theme. I'm very excited to customize her, and I'm very excited that you clicked on this first video of mine, so thank you so much. Alright, let's get started! Okay, so first we're going to give an inspection. She has some stains on her legs and on her ear and on her eyebrow, but that's nothing we can't fix, and it's to be expected with a secondhand doll. Into the random clothes bin the clothing goes. Here's my concept art. It was kind of just a basic sketch of the steampunk theme. Here is me taking out her bun, which turned out so gluey and so messy. I was originally planning to save her hair, but after taking it out of the bun and seeing how gross and gluey and sticky it was, I decided just to take it all off and then throw it out. So for this part, you want to cut close to the head with your scissors so that then later you'll be able to pull all of the hair out of the head. This is of course only if you want to do a wig or a reroot on a doll. If you're just going to leave the hair, obviously you wouldn't do this. And I know that my scissors are bonsai scissors. I could not find my other small ones for some reason. So just chop off all of the hair as close as you can get to the head, and after doing that for quite some time, I will have it short enough, and that is when we do our next prep part. For this prep part, I am sanding off all of her painted on stitches with sandpaper, with a fine grain of sandpaper. You could do this with acetone, but that leaves the legs all sticky and shiny, and that is not the kind of thing that we want, and so although this does take longer, it makes it look much nicer in the end. I recommend this method. Now it's time to separate the head and the body. So take a cup of boiling water and place the doll in. I let her sit for what's supposed to be a couple minutes, but I'm impatient, so I did take her out a couple times, and you can see here that she was very much not ready. So after some time, I start pulling her head off, which sounds very terrifying, I'm so sorry. And after some pulling with a towel, because you want to shield your hand from the very hot vinyl that the head is made out of, they come apart, which leads us to our next part. Now I am going to take all of the, blue hands and arms that have the molded on gloves and paint them red for the steampunk theme, since there's not really any bright blue in steampunk. This does take a couple coats of this acrylic paint, but I do not film all of that. And it's going pretty well, and the red's coating on very nicely, although it does turn sort of purple. And as you can see, it's kind of hard to get like nice onto the clean edge, and that's when that happens. After that mini disaster, I continued to paint for another minute or so, and that's when I remember sandpaper, and so I just sand it off, and it's nice and clean again. Many mistakes like these happen, and they always feel so big in the moment, but they're really not, and they're easy to fix once you find a solution. And this was certainly not the biggest mistake that I made on the doll. I continue to paint, and this arm, the seller, since this is a secondhand doll, it must have broken off, and they glued it with super glue, so the elbow joint doesn't move. So that was a little weird. I had to figure out how to position it properly because they glued the arm on backwards, but that is fine. Like I said, it happens with secondhand dolls. After a couple coats of paint later, I add some bronze on top of my original red to make it more shiny. And now, here comes a gross but very satisfying part, taking all the plugs of hair out of the head. For this, you want to slide your pliers or chopstick or whatever you're using along the lines of hair, and as you can see in my very speedy video, the hair comes out of the head, and then you can start to pull it out once you're done. Sorry I kept going out of frame and that my camera is very glitchy. I am using my phone to record, since I do not currently have an actual camera. I promise over time my camera skills will get better if you stick around to watch those videos, but for now, this is what we're left with. And now, with some interesting editing, we have a clean head. I start to pull all of the glue out of the head, which is pretty gross. These are not the worst glue chunks that I've ever pulled out of a head. Again, horrifying sounding. Doll customizing has those kinds of sentences. And I decide after a little while of doing this that it's going to take too long to film on camera because I forgot to time-lapse it. And so I just edited in a picture after filming for a couple more seconds. I'm always amazed at how much glue fits inside that tiny head. Now one of my favorite parts, acetone. So for this part, you take I'm taking a cotton piece of fabric, a scrap of fabric, some acetone, and a Q-tip. This will help you get all of the paint, the original face, and any stains off of the face. I wipe it first with the cotton scrap that has been soaked in acetone, and as you can see, that takes off most of the eye pretty well. It does the same for the second eye and the eyebrow, and pretty well for the lips, although this part does look a little Halloween-like and scary, but perfect for October. So as I am doing this, I continue to dip the clean side of the cotton scrap in acetone to clean out the sides of the mouth and the sides of the eyes. Now I wipe off the stain, which luckily was just acrylic paint, although it did take the Q-tip to finish that job because the ear is too small for the cotton scrap to reach. Luckily with just acetone I could take it off because it was just paint, like I said. See, it comes right off. With other materials that have gotten on the dolls, like Sharpies, they don't come off with acetone, and so you often have to find a creative and fun way to cover it up, including acrylic paint, fake stickers, and many more interesting things that I'm sure will happen in other dolls that I film videos for. Now I take the scrap of fabric again and wipe off the original paint on the hair, where the hair was, which makes the hair look more finished. I will do this to the doll myself with my own color, which I'm sure I really didn't need to wipe it off since it's a darker color I'm using anyways, but it just makes me feel a lot more like it's my doll if I clean it completely. I clean off the doll a little bit more to tidy her up, and like I said, we're on to the painting section. I paint her with a base red color to match the hair color I will give her. I now choose the colors of yarn that I was looking for. I was looking for the red, but I also grabbed that brown while I was at it because I could not find my red, but I promise I will grab it later. Separate them into chunks and tie them to a wire hanger and brush them with a pet brush, and this makes them nice and smooth, and you're left with a bunch of extra fluff, which can be used for stuffing in later projects. I in fact have a little jar of stuffing from old projects that I fill with more fluff. Now I root the hair into the head, starting at the hairline and the part, and then just fill in the rest of the head I lost half my footage for this, which is why it's so short, but I promise I did do more. When that is totally finished, I wrap her head in fabric to shield her from the sealant. I spray both the head and the body with Mr. Super Clear UV Flat Sealant, which is the sealant that I know most doll artists use. Now, my favorite part of all time, the face. I love this. I take my green watercolor pencil and sketch out the general lines of where the eyes and eyelashes and other things like that are going to go. I always use a color that is closest to the color of the face because it makes sure that you can hide it later on. I then dab on some pastel colorants with a little makeup brush to give her a sort of makeup application look. I'm going for a rather natural look on the eye makeup with this one because I figured bright colors, which is my general style, as you'll see, is not perfect for a steampunk doll. Most of the time I wear lots of rainbows and my dolls wear lots of rainbows and colors, but for this one I'm doing a more neutral reddish color palette to fit the steampunk theme. I apply some pink to her nose and cheeks for blush, but decide that that is not the look that I'm going for. So I pick up a rust color on my makeup brush, and I start with dabbing that on lightly, but I decide that's not dark enough, and so I continue swiping, and it gets a little bit too dark. But it's okay, because we will blend that out later. I try to wipe it off, but that does not work perfectly. I decide to just match it out on the other side, but that side must have had some oil from my hands on the doll, which is why I definitely should be wearing cotton gloves, but I couldn't find mine. And it gets sort of stained and very dark. You'll see when I focus more on that cheek in just a second. As you can see, it has more dark stains, which it's not supposed to. I'm not sure how that happened. But after trying to blend it out for a lot longer and realizing that that doesn't work, so I tried to blend it out with a lighter red color, but that still doesn't work. Then I remember to use a white color. I get some white powder and blend that out to match with the skin a little bit more, since Frankie is a whitish mint green, and that works a lot better, and it just gives her more like she put on some blush over foundation. I promise I will dust this off. I know it's kind of grainy right now. After doing that quite a few more times, she ends up looking really good. The blush, I mean. In between coloring her eyes and the whites of her eyes, you always want to spray another spray of sealant when the color stops building. This makes you have a new surface and seals the last layer so you don't accidentally wipe any of it off. I'm sorry my hand was blocking all of this, but I colored her eyes in green. I promise they will not stay this bright, vibrant green for long. I am going to try and give them more of a brownish green, so sort of a dark hazel look to them. I now dab on some pastel powders with a Q-tip to her lips. This highlights the natural lip shape, and then later I will color it in with another watercolor pencil of the correct shade. I was gonna go for more of an orange lip, but I decided that that again was not dark enough, so I went back with the rust color, and then again with a deeper red. I continue to blot on those darker colors, and it built up pretty nicely, if I do say so myself. Every so often you do have to dust off the lips, like I am doing in that clip, because they get lots of powder buildup. I also dusted over with the white to try and set it a little more and blend it like I did with the lips, but that brought me back to square one and I had to start over with the coloring. I tried to do the same technique that I did on the lips with the eyes, with some green to fill it in more, but that did not work as well as I wanted. I continue to work and map out the shape of the eyeliner and eyelashes, which I kept messing up and I had to take away with some with a watery Q-tip. The best thing about using watercolor pencils is they come right off the face with a little bit of water. I map out the shape of the eyebrows with green pencil and then fill them in with brown and elongate them a little more. I continue to fill in the lips and eyes, and I add a little birthmark where there was a bump underneath, which I must have sealed some powder under there. I add in some browns and greens to her eyes and continue blushing and blending. And I add eyelashes. This part took me a lot longer than it looks in this video clip, which is going very fast. I make her eyes look a little more realistic, and then I tried to paint a gear on her face. It ended up looking like the Walmart symbol, so I just wiped it off and painted a watery gold over her eyes and her lips, and then her birthmark and eyebrows. I went a little crazy with the gold. Something about metallic paint though. So fun. And she ends up looking so nice. Now I take some clear nail polish, which looks pink in the bottle, and some acrylic white paint. I paint on some eye shines to make her look more lively with the white paint, and it gives her more of a cartoonish look, which is more my style. I then take a very small paintbrush and dab on the clear nail polish, which again looks pink, but I promise it dries clear. And I coat that over her lips and her eyes to again give her that lifelike and lip gloss look. You could use a varnish for this, a high gloss varnish, but that's more expensive than nail polish, and nail polish is easily accessible to most people who live near a drugstore. So that's what I've been using for now, and it does, for me at least, a pretty similar thing than that the varnish would do. After painting that on and letting it dry, which also dulled it a little bit, which is good because that's kind of what I wanted, I let her dry for a bit and continue dabbing on, and then I get to do something that makes me so happy, which is unwrapping the hair. This means I get to match up how the hair and face look together. I take all the pins out of the head, and that's when I realize while I'm on this pin that I accidentally stabbed it into the head, not into the hairline, so there's a little hole there, but the hair will cover it up in its down state. I decided not to do the braid. And they look so good together. They give her the perfect look, exactly what I wanted. She gets a doll-like look, which, I mean, she is a doll. But now I move on to blushing the body the same way that I did with the face. And I try to blush her with a rust color, but again, there must have been some oil on her, so that didn't work the best, so I paint her underwear the red color. Here's the finished body, and now time to do something about this loose neck peg. We are going to reattach the head now, and so I popped that off the pen I was holding it on, and I forgot to tell you I put some glue inside the head. This helps seal the hair in. You want to very slowly squeeze the head back on so you don't break the neck peg, which I have done many a time, and it makes the doll not very movable. I do this for a little while, and then I squish too hard, and her head goes all the way to the bottom of her neck, which looks a little funny since she has such a short neck compared to the rest of her lengthy body. But with a little bit of twisting and sliding, you can get the head back up to where you want it, and she has the proper length of neck. Here is the finished body with the rust and the bronze. Now we are moving on to accessories, clothes, and shoes. I originally thought these shoes came on the doll since this is the one that the seller gave me with the doll, but they're not. First, I'm doing the shoes. We don't want that blue color. Again, we want it to be more of a red and bronze like the gloves. So I paint them with the same red and then bronze. And then this is a trick that I learned from Delightful's Steampunk dolls, which if you haven't ever seen those videos, they are so good and I've watched them so many times to get tips for this. I paint on the black to make them look more scuffed, watered down acrylic black. Like I said, I learned pretty much everything that I know about doll customizing from channels like Delightful, Moonlight Jewel, and Hextian, and a couple others, but those are the big ones. I do that for a little bit, and I also do the same thing with green later, but that doesn't work as well, and so I wipe the most of that off, which is why I didn't keep the clip in. I do that on both shoes. Now let's move on to clothes. Here are my patterns. I just traced around Monster High clothes and then cut out the fabric. Here is me painting on gears to an old jacket that I had from another doll, which happened to fit Monster High level. Here are the finished clothes. I didn't film them since it took me about 4 days for each piece because I am not very fast at sewing. I painted some bronze stripes on the pants, the gears, a beautiful shirt which took so long but was so worth it. The shoes, which I forgot to mention, I added some gears to, and not the plastic ones you saw. I made her a little backpack, which I added a gear to, and then I did the same thing to the belts that I did with the shoes and added gear. I just forgot to film it. Now I put on all of the clothes onto the doll and style her up a little, and she looks so good. There's a close-up of the shoes. There's the doll. I'm so proud of this doll, and I really hope you liked her. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow my Instagram for more dolls.